John Sewell here with the Engearment.com podcast. Super excited, as always, to have my good friend Pat Flynn on for at least a half dozenth or seventh time. And Pat Flynn, if you don't know who he has authored several books, Amazon bestsellers, and we're going to talk about his most recent work and the newest book as well. Pat, welcome back to the show.
Sean, it's a super awesome and honorable pleasure to be here. Always a joy to be back on the Engearment podcast.
Well, thank you, sir. You're one of our favorite guests. I think I mentioned like the first or second episode after that, I was in the backcountry, and some of my friends who are like avid backcountry skiers had picked up on you and your path to refining religion and fitness and philosophy. And so it's fun to share you with our outdoor audience and stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's always, you're a wonderful host. I always enjoy and benefit greatly from our conversation. So happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's touch on, we have so much to talk about, and it's going to be easy. It's always easy to talk with you. Your most recent book, what are you working on?
Yeah, so I'm working on, let me back up a little bit just to give people a little bit of perspective. So a lot of people obviously know me for the stuff I do in fitness, but my more formal backgrounds are economics and philosophy. It's what are my actual kind of like academic backgrounds. So for some time, I've been working on a larger book on metaphysics and natural theology. So these are branches of philosophy that try to probe at the ultimate foundation of things. They ask big questions about causality and identity and change and the ultimate foundations. You know, what is that? What is the ultimate theory of everything? That's kind of what metaphysicians are concerned with. You know, it's going over and above the physics. And for me, a lot of this becomes really interesting because it just ties into sort of the naturally biggest questions of life, questions about God's existence, God's nature, the meaning of life. So as somebody who was had a young interest in philosophy, I was always kind of drawn increasingly to metaphysics because it seemed like if you were able to answer the biggest questions, it seems like this is where you would have to go to be able to seriously engage with them. Science, as wonderful as it is it's just restricted. It can tell us a lot of things, a lot of very important things, but it can't really reach the same heights or depths depending on how you're looking at it as metaphysics. So that's kind of why I was drawn to that. So for me, my background was you kind of hinted at this already. I was kind of a skeptical person for a very long time, not religious. My introduction to philosophy was with many of the old atheist thinkers like Nietzsche and Camus and some of these guys. But as I got deeper and deeper into the philosophical traditions and conversations, that whole worldview just kind of fell apart for me. And we can explore the details if that's of interest, but I'll just give the brief synopsis here. And I kind of stumbled upon some of the more traditional thinkers. Well, I was familiar with them before, but I decided I want to really reinvestigate these guys. I want to really reconsider, kind of alternative worldviews that I haven't paid so much attention to, going back to Plato and Aristotle and Boethius and Augustine and Aquinas and then all the contemporary thinkers. And when I discovered the sort of tradition of natural theology, of just like armchair thinking about God, apart from any claims of revelation, but just like, can we use reason to argue for not just God's existence, but God's nature? That really captivated me. And then to see the intellectual rigor behind this tradition was something that was really fascinating as well. So that's kind of where I really focus my attention and research, especially in my master's program in philosophy. So what I've wanted to do since I finished my last book, the little green one, How to Be Better at Almost Everything, is take a lot of the work I did in my master's program and try and bring it to the people. Try and make it, trying to find this balance between accessibility but also rigor, and because I feel like there's something valuable there. So what I've done is I've taken just a small snippet of this larger book project I'm working on, and I put it on Amazon for just $1 ebook, just to get something out there, if nothing else, just to continue to motivate myself to finish this stupid project. So that's where I'm at with it. It's about done. Of course, the rewriting and the revisions and the editing always takes for me a lot longer than the initial write. But if anyone wants a sample, I've got this little ebook on Amazon called How to Think About God, which I sent your way last night. I wasn't sure if you had a chance to peek through that at all yet.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna take it up camping tonight and read it. I'm
Sweet.
glad to do that. Oh, that's great. And I like you. This is a very deep topic, and I'm gonna get more into it. But you touched on something that us writers can appreciate too. About it's hard to edit. So, like, what do you say? Write quick, edit slow.
That's always been a process that works well for me. Is you just, if you have an idea and you have inspiration, you have to get out of your own way, and you just have to get it on paper as quickly as possible. You almost have to vomit it on paper, to be honest. It's kind of a gross process. And then when you go back and you look at it, I mean, you're always thoroughly disgusted with yourself. No human could ever write that bad. Time to hang it up. But it's at least, it's heartening when I read other writers that I really look up to, and they share their first drafts, their really crappy first drafts, and you realize, oh, this is just a process that everybody else goes through, and that good writing is editing. I'm convinced of that. Good writing is editing. So yeah, that's how it always is for me. My first draft is always, it's not even like close to mediocre. My first draft is always awful. It's always awful.
That's very humble of you. And hopefully any writers of any background and genre, for example, I think 32 writers now for Engearment, and they get writer's block. Everybody gets it. And I'm like, just get it out and come back to it, and we'll edit it together if you want. Like, just get it out. You have thought, just get them out.
Yeah. And it's once you get out of your own way, that's when you can really start to find your groove and find your tone and find your style as well. And then there's, I have a couple tricks as well. It's like once you're in that groove, when you go back to edit, lop off like the first 2 to 3 paragraphs, and you'll probably find a good lead just right there, right? Because the first 2 to 3 paragraphs, you're probably trying too hard. You're still getting in your own way. You're trying to grab attention. You're trying to be funny. And as long as you're like trying to do all those things, you're probably not doing them very well. Mm-hmm. And it's not until you really get into that rhythm, that groove, that your authentic style and tone comes out. So yeah, just a few. That's just how I approach it. Mm-hmm.
No, and for reference, Pat is a proficient writer. He's obviously a great orator, great at speaking, but he's got a lot of written content. So this is good advice.
Thank you.
Well, this is fantastic. I didn't mean to steer away from the bigger topic of how to think about God. But I'll put a link in the show notes. It's $1 on Amazon. All of 44 pages too, so I'm pretty sure I can get through that tonight.
Yeah, I'll be curious your feedback to see how, because what I wanted to do was make it so it was accessible enough that even if people don't have any background in philosophy or metaphysics, that I do enough hand holding that I can at least get you through it. How much you'll get out of it is another question, but at least get you through it. But at the same time, I want to engage with even if you're a professional philosopher. I towards the end of the book, I consider what I think are the strongest and most serious objections that you find in the literature and stuff like that too. So that was really hard for me, and it's always a difficulty of any writing project is deciding on your audience. And for me, I could you could go either direction with that, and maybe this was a mistake on my part. We'll see. But I wanted to see, no, I want this to be accessible yet still rigorous, so that way, no matter where somebody's coming from, this is the first time exploring the subject, or maybe I've been in the field for a while. Hopefully, they'll still get something out of it.
That's great. Every time I talk with you, I'm listening and I'm taking notes and I'm learning, because I don't have the background, or even close to the background you do in these topics. The closest I have, and this is kind of funny, I inherited 2 ferrets, Camus and Nietzsche. That's as close as I have.
That's great.
Yeah. No, but really, I appreciate the philosophies, and I appreciate you breaking it down to a more palatable version for people like me. So
yeah. And my first off, I still love Nietzsche. I think everybody should visit him and read him, especially like his genealogy of morals. I'm writing another article right now of how relevant that is to contemporary just politics and society. I think there's a lot of, while I would disagree with his broad strokes of reality, I think he has very useful specific applications, and he's able to pinpoint some very deep and true psychological aspects within humanity. But yeah, that's an aside. But he's still somebody that's very much worth engaging with.
Oh, that's good. Very good stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give this a whirl tonight, and listeners and viewers out there, it's available right now. So
it's out there. Yeah, we even hit number one, like new release in philosophy of metaphysics. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And I'm sure somebody will think, well, that's probably because there's only 4 books in that category. And to that, I would say you might have a point, but we'll take what we can get around here, right?
Anytime. I love it. Yeah, I'm the number one book in the world on splitboarding and the only one. So
yeah, it's like people who set these world records in the lifts that nobody does.
yes,
Hey, good for you. That's creativity as far as I'm concerned. Good for you. Mm-hmm.
it's good to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, but much more to your credit, you've had a number of books, number one on Amazon. I mean, how many books do you even have right now out there?
So I have, in terms of traditional published books, like through like Wiley or whatever, 4. And then if you include my self-published, like the shorter titles, and let's be honest, the self-published stuff aren't really books. They're like thick pamphlets at best.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, like 7 or 8. Yeah. And a lot of those self-published ones, there's pros and cons to each. The traditional publishing is you get the full, suite of editors and the power of a big publishing company behind you, which can also be really painful and cause a lot of headaches.
I bet.
And yeah, and you lose creative control. So there's pros and cons. With the self-publishing, it's nice because you can get stuff out quick. You maintain full creative control. But I mean, look, editors are really important. They are, and we all hate editors, right? Because they tear our work apart. But I've been writing for a while now, and I still don't trust myself to publish something without having at least one other person.
That's fair.
Look through my work, but as much as I can, like I had for this little ebook, I had 2 people just edit it for just your typical grammatical content, but then I had 3 other philosophers just read through it in terms of its actual substance as well.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so if people are interested in the big questions, check it out. I try to give a contemporary metaphysical argument for what's called classical theism, which is a very robust form of monotheism. So it's not a book about religion, but it certainly gives credence to one very important aspect of religion, or at least certain religions. So it's compatible with religion. It doesn't settle the big religious questions, but it does, I think. It definitely pushes the conversation in a certain direction, the worldview conversation in a certain direction. And then invites, I would say it enables or invites a deeper seeking, spiritual seeking at that point. That's really what I'm trying to do, and show that there's very rational and reasonable grounds for that further seeking. Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. And I think 2 or 3 conversations ago, we talked about my own personal, I don't say religion, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, is going into the outdoors, into the mountains, and just soaking it up right there. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that and reading your book tonight.
Cool. And I look forward to your feedback, good sir.
Excellent. Okay, so this is one of the great things about Pat, is the ability to talk in great detail about this, as well as other areas, music and fitness. Fitness is on my mind right now because tomorrow morning I'm launching a national virtual training session for the law firm Brownstein Haidt Farber Schreck. I've been at that firm for 18 years in some capacity. I started in the mailroom, then I went to accounting and IT, and then I left there to start my training business 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to offer virtual training. This is the first time I've done it when it's not like directly, with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people. They invited 600 people. So I was trying to wrap my head around how to develop a program. And it dawned on me that you and Dan John had talked about this a few times, this 30-30 for 30. Basically 30 seconds of exercise, usually body weight or something around the house. Yeah. 30 seconds of rest, and it's for 30 minutes. It's genius. I have I've watched all of his videos. I'm going to put that to use starting this week. What have you found helpful for training in a larger sense, or virtually for people?
Yeah, or even in just groups too, because when you're training groups, the dynamics are totally different than when you're training an individual. So this is something that coaches should definitely always keep in mind. And I've been blessed with wonderful experiences of training extremely diverse groups. I mean, to give you an example, when I was in college, and I was just and that's really how I got into the whole fitness scene, was when I was going to college originally, like I said, I wasn't going for exercise science or anything like that, but I was training people as a way to kind of pay my tuition and rent and stuff like that. So I would teach. Oh boy, it was a lot of classes. I would teach multiple classes a day, sometimes 2 to 3, and I was personal training on top of it. So it was exhausting. Yes. A lot of Red Bull, and but I would bounce back. So I would teach at the university, right? I would teach kettlebell classes there at the university, and I would have sometimes, I kid you not, up to 80 freaking people in these classes. Wow. And we only had like 30 kettlebells. So like talk about like it was like the show Chopped, but with kettlebells, where they just give you this scenario. It's like, just deal with it, do something, be creative. And then I would also teach at the YMCA, and they would have me teach like classes for senior citizens, right? So it's like, now how do I deal with this? So it forced me to be very creative, and I think develop a number of different strategies for how to effectively train groups to make sure that they're getting effective workouts, but I'm also, tailoring things enough to the audience. And one thing I quickly learned, and this is to your point, is that getting or moving somewhat away from sets and reps and moving more toward timed work periods is definitely something that's worth considering when training with groups, because there's enough flexibility in there that you can have an awesome group dynamic. And that's kind of what you want, where people are still kind of like all working together, because the work periods are coordinated, and yet you can adjust things to the individual as need be, based on intensity or how many reps you do in that time period, etc. So, if you're doing 30 for 30, and we can dive into some more specific plans here, and you have a series of exercises, say you've got like goblet squats in there and swings and TRX rows or something like that. You can even, the first round through, you can even just do a few warm-up sets. Maybe you do 1 or 2 reps on the goblet squat, you do some hip prying and stuff like that. Or maybe one person's doing that and another person, they're ready to go. So they're cranking out like 15 reps or something like that. But it's cool because they're all still together. Yes. And this group dynamic is important, because if you were to prescribe, hey, 5 sets of 5, somebody might finish that in half the time as somebody else. And then you get this disjointed, disruptive class dynamic, which you really don't want, or at least you want to try to limit that as much as possible as a group instructor, because then people can become confused, or they can feel unnecessarily intimidated, or other things that, and there's always trade-offs when it comes to coaching. But for me, at least, I always want to try and limit those nuisances as far as possible. Like, sometimes we might admit of it to some degree, because it might just be the only way to achieve something, right? Mm-hmm. But time sets are a good way to hedge against those disruptions and that disorganization, and yet still allow people to find an appropriate but successful challenge for themselves. And that's where something like a 30 for 30 is fantastic, right? Because everyone's working together. You get an awesome 30-minute workout in. Great for group dynamic, great for like circuits too. So if you have limited equipment, you can spin people around. So maybe you have like a body weight exercise, you have a kettlebell exercise. If you got a barbell, you can throw that in there. If you have a TRX, so it's a great strategy. For me, it's indispensable when it comes to training. Anything more than Well, it's great even by yourself. Who am I kidding, right? Even as it's great. I love those workouts even just individually, but certainly for a group.
I dig that. Thank you for validating that. In small group trains, I always had my little iPad, and I would do 30 or 40 seconds on and X amount of time off. And that was because I can't count for more than 2 people. I suck at this even for one person. But and also structure, like to have that time. Like, we know this is going to take 8 or 10 minutes for this set, and then you can have, like I said, good control, or as much control as possible over the situation, so you don't have a bunch of loose ends and people getting confused. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah, it is. And it's also fun too. And I feel like that's one of the elements of training that's sometimes overlooked. It's one of these, it's kind of the X factor. We want people to really enjoy themselves as well, that we want them to reach their goals. Mm-hmm. But I think as coaches, it's important to remember that we are not always necessarily our customer. Yes. And the balancing act we have to achieve is one where we give them what we know they need as coaches, but we also meet them somewhere along the lines with what they want. Yes. And that is a difficult balancing act. But I feel like, strategies like the 30 for 30 are are worthwhile because definitely people, kind of on the more basic consumer level, what do they want? They want a good workout. They want to feel like they worked out. And all the better if there's an awesome group dynamic, there's good camaraderie, maybe even some good music. Who knows, right? So give it to them. And then, make sure that you're just programming that, according to whatever you as a coach, whatever you understand that they actually need as well. And that to me is a hallmark of somebody who gets it as a coach, when you can find that balance.
Oh, that's good stuff. So all you fitness professionals out there, if you're having a little bit of frustration trying to figure out how to group coach virtually, time, even in person, it's fun. And also to Pat's point, for my own personal training of myself, I use time as well. And it might sound absurd, but like it's a huge amount of rest. I do basically 6-to-1 work to rest, like 15 seconds of all out ballistic, and then up to 2 minutes of rest. And that can get kind of boring for people you're training. So I don't offer that to people unless they want that.
But you can mix it up too. And that's what's cool is, even with the 30 for 30, you can have prescriptions in there where you're just doing low rep, heavy strength work in that. And, you might only do a few reps per set, but so what? That's fine.
Oh, totally. And if it's in person too, I like with time because people can swap stories and talk. They're not worried about counting it for themselves. And that just brings the bonding in even more.
Yeah. The community is huge. And that's a big reason why people go. That's what's, kind of another sucky thing about this COVID situation is people are really losing community, in-person community. And that's weighing on people in a big way. So yeah, again, as coaches, we can't forget that one of the reasons people come to train with us is it's not just because of us, it's because of the connections they form with other people.
Absolutely. Yes. And hopefully you coaches out there have good personal relationships with the people that you work for, and you care about them deeply. Because personally, I get as much out of it as they do oftentimes when I get to see them and see them smile. Well, can't see them smile, but I can guess with the eyes right now because of the mask.
Right, with the mask on. Yeah.
And, it's very important for connection. Like here in Denver, we still have masks rule in place, and we can't use a mask in the gym, or we have to use a mask in the gym. So there's some, things have changed and a little more rest break and lots of fans and this and that. But this weekend was my first big social interaction, and it felt great. My in-laws moved to a new home 10 minutes from their old home. They have 4 daughters. My father-in-law came into town, and it was all of us just working together to help them build their new home up and put things in place. And that was connections. So important right now.
It definitely is, and even just if it's over Zoom or whatever, because again, unfortunately, another one of the sucky things about the situation is like suicide rates are just like surging right now.
Yeah.
It's like, and part of that is because part of our nature is not just rational animals, but we're rational, dependent, social animals. To flourish, we need social interaction. We really do. And if that's true, then we would expect that if you start to severely limit social interaction, you might see some really negative consequences. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So, And I don't have many good answers to that. It's just it's a bad situation. So, if you can't do it in person because of, whatever the regulations are in your state, it's, one thing I do is I just have weekly meetings with my friends on Zoom,
Oh, I love it.
That helps, right?
It helps huge. I look forward to it very much. No objective or no agenda, just seeing their faces, catching up. It's so important. And a lot of it is free, like FaceTime or Google Duo if you don't have an iPhone, and Zoom. I mean, it's very approachable. Anybody can learn how to do this in a couple minutes.
No doubt. Yeah. I just wish I would have invested in Zoom before all this happened.
I know, right? You would be sitting pretty bad. That's good stuff. So what else are you cooking up over there? You working on any music?
Yeah, I am. I've been jamming on a few riffs. I'm looking at my guitar right now. I was playing for a good while yesterday. So for me, like I said, the first draft always sucks. It's true. It's true for music. It's true for anything. So I've got probably, 5 or 6 just really rough, I don't like haphazard collections of riffs on the computer that I've just been looking at for a couple months, realizing I need to do something with it. But it's also the thing where it's like, again, it's easy and it's fun to like get down the initial rough sketch, but it's the painful process to refine it. Again, good music is also editing as far as I'm concerned. And it's just one of those things where I just have to, I have to just because it's a project like anything else. So that's why for me it always goes in cycles. It seems like about once a year I might put out like 3 or 4 new tracks, because it's exhausting to really just to refine it, the structure of the songs, to make sure I play all the parts well, because I'm one of those guys where I don't like to layer or multi-track. For me, it's one take all the way through.
Oh, I like that. Not like or Smashing Pumpkins for overdubbing.
Yeah, I don't loop. I hate looping, because I'm a huge AC/DC fan, right? And there's something I love about AC/DC when you can notice that it's just a little bit different throughout the song every time, the dynamics, because they're not looping it. And some people say, well, that's an imperfection. No, I say that's a mark of humanity. That adds a dynamism and a liveliness to the music that I like, that I love. Van Halen's the same way, right? It's like, yeah, he never really kind of plays the riff exactly the same way when you're listening to it. And I love the dynamics of that. Now, you still have to play it extremely well, because if you're sloppy, people are going to notice. But so it takes a lot of rehearsal, because I'm not a naturally good musician. So it takes a lot of rehearsal, takes a lot of hours, takes a lot of practice. So, for me to even just get out a couple of songs it's a considerable project. But I do hope, my goal is to have at least 3 or 4, new ones out on the old SoundCloud that nobody listens to. Probably by December. And maybe just saying it on here will put my feet to the fire.
And to add to, I'll put a link to your SoundCloud in the show notes. So
awesome, man! Thanks. I'll take what I can get. I force people to listen to it on my Kettlebell videos, because if anybody's been to my YouTube channel, most of the music in the background is my music.
And that's impressive, because I was like, that's some good rock right there. That's some good metal. And then it was you. So
yeah, we're doing it up with just the Gibson SG here. Yeah,
I'm a fan of the SG.
Yeah, it's a great instrument. You get great tones. We've talked about this before. It's versatile. So that's been my primary now for like 5 years, and I'm happy with it.
That's awesome. That is cool. I forget if I mentioned my first guitar was a BC Rich Ironbird EMG pickups.
Yep.
Oh God, yeah, that thing is a beast.
Yeah, the old BC Rich. I've only played a few of those. What was my first one? It was an Epiphone. It was an Epiphone Les Paul.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Sunburst. It was a good starter guitar.
Was it pretty like a traditional Les Paul?
Yeah, it was. I got it. It was so long ago. My parents started me in the 2nd grade, so I started pretty young, which is always nice. If you want to get good at something, find a time machine. Start when you're young. That's my best advice. I try to take that very seriously with my kids now. Like, I'm just starting all my kids, like doing what I wish my parents would have done for me as young as possible. Now, hopefully I'm not like obsessive about it, but it's so valuable to start younger. Now, at the same time, you can definitely learn new skills when you're older. You can definitely do that, but there's just something about the kid brain that's so malleable. Like, I've just seen the progress my son has made at the piano in the past year. It's like, dang it, Dad, why didn't you do that for me? Right?
Of course. Are you doing lessons with him still?
Yeah. And it's funny because he's just better than me. He gets it quicker than I do. Like, I'm better than him because I've been a musician longer, but like his rate of progress is definitely, relatively speaking, much, much higher than mine.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
As a dad, it's probably really cool to see him just soaking it up. And
yeah, it is awesome. And I never played piano until last year when I started taking lessons with him. But it's one of those things that you wish you would have started on sooner.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm. How about do you play piano?
No, not at all. Well, that's not true. As a joke, somebody gave us this little electronic piano and like this little drum set. So I take it camping and I just do.
That's piano?
It's piano. It is a piano.
You got chopsticks down? You're a pianist.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I love it. No, I've never taken lessons to learn anything for music wise. Well, that's not true. I played sax in grade school. Yeah. But
and I bet, I don't know, how long you did that for, but like that early exposure, even if it's not super deep, it does something. It definitely does. Mm-hmm.
It's like learning a new language or something. Like, oh, you can create things with your fingers and your mouth and other things and create sounds and change those sounds to suit your needs. It's
right. And it sticks. Like, even if you lose it for a while, if you had it when you're younger, it's always easier to come back to. I mean, for example, so I started learning music theory pretty young, and studied it I had 2 years of AP music theory in high school, but then I just left it pretty much at the time of college. And now I'm going back to it, and it's definitely rusty. But like anything else, it's so much easier to reinvigorate something than it is to gain it in the first place. And like that's so true for physical strength too. Like it's so much easier to get like a strong deadlift again than it is to just get a strong deadlift for the first time.
Right. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. Speaking of deadlifts, I haven't touched a barbell for a long time, maybe 10 or 20 years, until I did the Strong First Lifter certification with Doc Cardle. And you're right. You're like, oh, that's how it feels. And then you learn better nuanced movement patterns and you get better. What are you currently doing for your training?
I'm back on the barbell, baby.
Nice.
We're back. Yeah, we're back. Yeah, no, I got too freaking skinny during this COVID stuff. I'm like, I need to put some meat back on my bones, because I've been just doing some, kettlebell complex training and some resistance bands. So I've felt great. I've been recovering well because the intensity has not been as high as normal. Mm-hmm. But I've also just been eating less. So I've definitely lost some weight. And I like being lean. I like being on, I guess, the leaner side. But I'm like, I need to go back. I need to just crank the volume and intensity back up, at least for a little bit here.
Sure.
And start going back to Chipotle for my post-workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have here too. Big fan.
Right, to get those calories in. Yeah, so what am I doing? I'm doing about a 3 kind of pretty higher volume full body workouts now, leaning more towards hypertrophy again, because like I said, I'm determined to try and gain some of this weight back. So 2 days are predominantly upper body focused with some lower body work, and then 1 day predominantly lower body focused with some upper body work. And then the rest of the days are just mobility, walking, maybe a little conditioning.
I like it. I like it a lot. Sumo or traditional on deadlift?
I'm a conventional. Yeah. Yeah. I've always pulled conventional. So in my program right now, I have conventional deadlifts 1 day and I have rack pulls another day.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah. And then, it's hybrid. So I'm still doing kettlebell stuff, but I'm doing the hinging, the heavy hinging with barbell. I'm doing, pretty much all the lower body at this point, except for swings. I have swings in there, on those hinging days. Front squats, barbell. So yeah, I'm back on the barbell right now. Military press with kettlebell. I still like the kettlebell for military press. And then for the conditioning, almost exclusively kettlebell and running.
I dig it. And on the front squat, this way or?
Yeah, I've got decent mobility, so I can get the shoulders up. Yeah, so I can do that. If you can't do that, so sometimes people will go to the kettlebell front squat, but the kettlebell front squat is quite different than the barbell front squat, because it's actually more like a Zercher squat than it is a barbell front squat. It's just a very different exercise, a fantastic exercise. I'm a huge fan. It's an awesome exercise, but it just is quite different than a barbell front squat.
Yeah. I was looking at this from the side, and I think Doc turned me on to this, like the clock, like your back's a clock. And in a goblet squat, you're basically at 6, right? Then it changes to go to a back squat. Then, of course, to hinge,
Yep.
So it's interesting to think about how the weight is loaded, where it's loaded, distal, medial, and how you operate around it.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends what you're looking for. It depends on the goal. For me, barbell front squats feel good. I'm not a huge fan of the back squat. I'll begrudgingly do it on the program every now and then. I've never been great at it. It's always a sissy lift for me. We all have those lifts, right? Like where it's like, if you're going to the gym, there's only some lifts you'll do when nobody's around. Back squat is one of those for me. And then there's like the only lift you'll do when everybody is around. For me, that's like dips. I'm pretty savage at dips and chin ups. I can put a lot of weight on those, but barbell back squats, you'll never see me doing it.
Oh, that's funny. I like your openness about that. I think for me it'd be bench press. I suck at bench. You won't see me doing those.
Yeah, I have a very strange disparity in bench press. I'm pretty strong with the dumbbell bench press. All things considered, I can put up the hundreds on the inclines fairly respectably. Not too much struggle, but the barbell bench press, same thing. I'm not impressing anybody with my barbell bench press.
Yeah. I'm glad we had that in common. I used to love dips and pull-ups. I used to do weighted dips and pull-ups all the time. I overdid it, and I paid the price. I ripped out my funny bone nerve right here. Yeah. I think I was trying to impress a girl or something, but that was like 20-some years ago. I do miss dips. They're a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, for me, they've always felt good. I incorporate them as much as I can. I haven't done them in a while since I don't have a dip station here at home. I should get one of those standing towers, though.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's just one of those things. We all have our sort of natural inclinations of the thing. Like I've always just been good at them. Same thing with chin-ups, same thing with pistol squats. Just as I've always been not good at back squats. And
bench press.
Just is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And
I like that. It's good to be humble and honest about that stuff. Yep. Well, that's really helpful. Yeah, I'm trying to think. My training is pretty basic, but I think I'm going to incorporate a little more hypertrophy as well. Got time to rest. Got plenty of time to cook food. Might as well.
Right. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. So, just out of curiosity, what are you doing right now?
You know, my basic has always been, well, for like the last 3 years has been what they call the quick and the dead from Pavel, the O3, which is basically 15 seconds about ballistic full body something or other, usually hinge, and then waiting a certain amount of time, and then a ballistic of an upper body, like a dip would be a good example, or a Viking push press, or a push up, or a plyo push up if you can. So basically that, I do that fasted 3 or 4 days a week. And then I add in the grinds. You know, I love the cleans, the presses, the double squat or the offset squat. And then for conditioning, it's moving. I spent the last 4 days moving my in-laws. Like they have 4 girls under the age of 6. So I'm like moving just so many toys and stuff and building desks for them. And we have Apple Watches. I bought my wife one for our anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're actually, I'd never wanted one. Everybody's like, you should get one. I was like, I don't want any technology. I just need a regular watch. Then I watched how well it worked for her for accountability with her mother and her friends. So now we challenge ourselves every week. And I was like, what the heck? I'm going to put it on activity as I'm moving 5 hours, 2,500 calories. And she's like, you're cheating. I'm like, no, I'm sweating. It's 98 degrees. I'm moving stuff. That's activity. That's
Yeah, that's really cool. I've like anything else, I've been like, should I get one of those things? And you know, I talk myself into it, and then my wife will talk me out of it because she's the voice of reason. Of course.
They always are. Yep.
Yeah, they always are. So I don't have one yet, but yeah, that's, you know, I'm a sucker for just I am. I'm just a sucker for stuff like that.
Yes.
Tracking apps. I totally give into all of it. I do.
Oh, then you would dig it. You know, I was talking to Dr. Craig Mark about this last week. I'm a nerd for this stuff too. I've got like heart rate monitors. I'll track resting heart rate variability, which is a very, very cool thing to track. And on here, there's heart rate variability on here. So it'll do it randomly. And if it shows up anything lower than like 25, I'm like, oh God, I'm being too reactive. I'm not breathing through my diaphragm. I'll take 2 minutes and do some box breaths.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. So that right there has kept my stress level a lot lower because it's easy to get in your head and think something, but then when you have data, you're like, oh, okay, it is measured, and I can change this.
Yeah, and even just the reminders, because your awareness might just not be on it at that moment.
I, like you, I can get on a project and just lose my mind for 6 hours straight, but this reminds me to stand up, do some 5-second box breaths, you know, and then it's kept me healthier than I thought.
Okay, you might get me in trouble with the wife again here, Sean.
Blame it on say it's an anniversary present for each other.
That's right. That's right. Happy birthday.
If she gets one too, she will appreciate it. There's a lot of cool things about it.
Yeah.
Our nieces know how to operate. Every time I visit them, they're like, did you know you can do this? I didn't know it can do anything besides time and heart rate variability, to be honest.
You know, that always amazes me of just how intuitive these devices are. And you can see that because of how easily children figure them out. I mean, the stuff my kids can do on our iPhones, for example, or even like the Nintendo Switch. I'm like, wait,
that's a
how did you do that?
It's true. Oh,
they're all under 6 years old, by the way.
Yeah, I can relate. I have 6 under 6, female-wise. Every time I see them, I learn something new. It's awesome.
Yeah, forget instruction manuals. I'll just hand whatever new gizmo I get to my kid.
Right. Or IKEA, we had these desks to put together, and they're just like, this goes over here. I'm like, verify. I'm like, yeah, actually it does. Okay, cool. Very perceptive.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good. That's cool. And I haven't done the Quick and the Dead program. I mean, obviously, I think very highly of all of Pavel's stuff. I actually haven't done a Pavel program in a minute. Maybe after I'm done this little phase, I'll have to cycle back around.
Yeah, they sent over another one too. It's basically a clean, a press, and a squat and a renegade row. Real simple. And
Yeah. I still think that one of his absolute best was I don't even know if you can get it anymore, but it was one of the first ones I got. One of my old boxing coaches gave it to me, was just the original Russian Kettlebell Challenge. Do you have a copy of that one?
Ooh, I have. Watch this.
Not Enter the Kettlebell. It's got to be the original Russian Kettlebell Challenge.
Sorry, listeners. I don't have all of his books, but I have most of the manuals right here. And in there is Naked Warrior, and no, I don't have that one.
Yeah, see, I don't have it anymore either. I lent it to someone at some point, but it was such a great program, and it was before Enter the Kettlebell. This was like early on.
Wow. What two moves was it based on? Do you remember?
No, it was a bunch of moves. Like, okay. So it wasn't like simple and sinister. There was all sorts of stuff in there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had push press and jerk in there. And then, I guess as RKC developed, he decided he wanted to take more of a minimalist approach, which I certainly appreciate. But there was a lot of genius in that program. Unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of details right now, but I remember I benefited a lot from that early on.
Let's track that down.
Yeah, the Russian Kettlebell Challenge. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's available anymore, but if it is, definitely worth scooping up.
I'll hit up Amanda from Strong First and see if we can't track that down for us. That'd be good. Yeah. What was your first foray into kettlebells? What got you curious into them?
Right. So martial arts was my first foray into fitness. Right. So my background growing up was the kid who exercise for me was eating and resting. Sean, that was the routine growing up. Eating, resting, and video games was my exercise for a large portion of my life. Got nice and portly, was kind of the chubby one among the friends. Eventually decided this has got to stop. But I didn't want to go to the weight room, because, that's where my friends who were also the jocks were working out. And it's like, man, if I go in there, they're just going to rib me the whole time. And they totally would have too. Right. So I'm not going to do it. So I wussed out there. And instead I went to a martial arts studio, Taekwondo, kind of on a whim, actually, with a friend of mine. We were just kind of driving by one day, I guess, home from school, and we went in and took a free lesson, and I actually loved it. And I had a great coach. He was a great mentor. He got me into really properly understanding fitness and nutrition. And this would have been early high school. And no kettlebells at that point, but I got really interested in Taekwondo, started getting competitive with it. Then when I go to college, I'm on the competing team, and that's where I meet Sam. And Sam is my Taekwondo coach at that point. So he takes me down to his gym, and this is when this would have been 2008-ish, and that's where I'm first introduced to kettlebells, both by him and Brian Petty. And as it usually goes, they just totally, roped me into doing the cert 3 months later. So I just kicked it into super high gear. And when I passed the RKC cert, I was the youngest person to ever do it at the time. Wow. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, that was how I got into it. So it was through martial arts, and I was doing traditional weightlifting. I was doing, dumbbells, barbells, all that stuff. And Sam's like, hey, you gotta start checking out these kettlebells. I think these are going to help you out a lot. Fell in love with them. And then I was like, yeah, this is my thing. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. And that's a great path. And I've watched Sam demonstrate the kettlebell swing, and I remember a video of yours years ago. You're talking, he's just quiet and just knocking out fluid, amazing two-handed swings. I was like, that guy is good.
He's a total technician, right? So first off, he's a millionth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he's been a martial artist his entire life. So I mean, you should just see. He is also extremely humble. It's hard to find any videos of him doing stuff. So you really got to kind of come into the gym to see his chops, and they're really impressive. I remember we were first sparring, and I'd been sparring for a while at this point. And the first time Sam kicked me, I will always remember that. right? Like I had never felt that much force in my life, right? Like this was like, I wanted to just turn over and cry. I was pretty sure all my ribs were broken. I'm like, all right, this dude's on to something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so no, he's an absolute technician. He's very humble. He's extremely strong in not just kettlebells and barbells. So if you're in the like southeastern Pennsylvania area and you're into kettlebells and martial arts, you got to get down to his gym's called the Dragon Gym and just train with the master himself. Because yeah, most of what I learned was just through him.
What a great mentor. It's
for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And every time I see him in a video or on your podcast, he's a quiet operator. He's his words are wise. He's like the Yoda. It's
right.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. We call it the Psalm Says segment. He's very concise. Mm-hmm. He's got an interesting story too. Just real quick, I'm gonna hook you two up because he'd be a great podcast guest. Sean.
I'd love to. Yeah.
He went to UPenn for electrical engineering. But like so kind of like similar with me, like not related to fitness.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, nah, I'm just gonna buy this gym and this will be my thing. And that's what he's been doing ever since. Yeah.
Wow, good for him. I love those kinds of stories. Yeah, let's get him on the show and pick his brain.
Yeah, definitely a worthwhile guest. Lots of knowledge to share in many different areas. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Oh, very excellent. Oh, that's great stuff. Yeah, I'm looking for that book too. Yeah, Pavel's work is amazing. And Steve Cotter too. Like, mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I got into kettlebells. I got Steve Cotter's Encyclopedia of Kettlebell Exercises.
I remember that one.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Yeah. So I'm like studying them and watching them, and then I don't have anybody around me to teach me correctly until Eric Frohart, and then I go into Strong First and follow a path that kind of how you learned as well. But yeah, and again, it's a fantastic tool, and you don't have to do it dogmatically. There's a lot of ways to approach it, right? It's fun to try new things. For example, I'm training out of a new gym. Great people. They're vets, and they're very versed. FMS, TRX, Strong First, MoveNet. We have MoveNet set up. Have you ever seen the MoveNet setup? It's like warrior stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have actually.
It's monkey business, crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. But they started squatting with knees past toes. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, yeah. And then they did it gracefully. And I'm like, all right, mind's blown.
Yeah, like the old Hindu squats, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sam will say that for him, those are just squats.
Right. Touche. 2 levels. Mm-hmm. I like it. Yeah, no, it's true. Like there's a lot of ways to approach these things.
Right. And yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that. Right. So, look, I mean, our knees are going past our toes all the time. You go up a flight of stairs, like try not to put your knees past your toes. So you might as well strengthen the pattern and just do it reasonably, do it sensibly. And if you do that, especially if you kind of like train on those extremes and you do it sensibly, I think you will just be that much more resilient to injury. Right.
Resilient. And that's so key for all of us. Right. For the people I work with sometimes, like for split boarders, snowboarders, and skiers, the knee is going past the toe all the time. So I remember right back before all the gyms closed, I'm training one of my backcountry elite skiers, and I allowed his knees to go past in the squat. And other trainers are like, what are you doing? I'm like, if you were on the mountain and you were skiing with us, you would see this pattern. So we're working this pattern.
And it's totally a sensible thing to do, right? And it's like, okay, maybe that won't be like the squats on like the balls of your feet, like the extreme knee forward squat. Okay, maybe you're not going to set, records in the back squat from that position.
Right.
But higher reps there, with body weight, I find them extremely therapeutic for the joints. Mm-hmm. Extremely therapeutic. And definitely. So yeah, it's not a pattern that I aggressively load. I don't think you need to do that, but it's definitely something that I think is worth incorporating because again, it kind of strengthens you at the extreme ends of what is normal, healthy range of motion still. That is normal, healthy range of motion. So we want to make sure we are strong at those ends. So that way, when we find ourselves in that position, we're not going to snap. We're not going to break. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's great advice, Pat. I'm glad to hear it from you too. So it's not just me preaching this, guys.
No. I think this is somewhat, it's becoming increasingly well recognized. I think people are finally breaking out of that old, very odd. It was very odd. It still lingers, right? Like there's this like, I don't know, like everybody's treated like an invalid, like never squat past, not even just your knees going forward, but like don't ever squat past parallel. It's like, what are you talking about, right? Like first off, like whatever they're basing this off of from the science it's totally outdated and junk at this point. And it's like I look at my kids and they have these such beautiful deep squats, right? It's like this is how the human body is meant to move, and we follow a very we follow a pretty basic use it or lose it principle. And I'll agree. Like if you haven't done deep squats in a long time, right, and you've been essentially sedentary for 30 years. Yeah, we might not, want to test the range of motion too quickly, with too much intensity. But we might not want to be doing back squats at all at that point, right? We might want to try and get that range of motion back first before we start loading it up with barbells or kettlebells or anything like that. So to me, it just is. I guess I feel like the conversation has moved forward on this issue, yet some of those, I guess, I don't know, myths still remain. They're still around.
They are.
Yeah.
It's nice to explore, and it's not even new. It's actually old. It's just revisiting it, right? Like, okay, this does work. Actually, my favorite pattern is to sit in a very deep squat, because that way I'm at the level of my dogs or my nieces, or when I'm training people, that's a good place to get a good side view of what their patterns are. And it's good. Yeah.
It's good for you. It's good for your hips. It's good for your knees. Yes, there are exception cases, right? Of course, there's exception cases to anything, but we don't build the rule on the exceptions. This is a normal, healthy pattern. We want to be able to access it, and we want to be able to hang out there. So I'm with you. Yeah, just the body weight, just the deep squat sits are awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff. Oh, Pat, this has been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of great territory. You got your book, Religion, Philosophy, Fitness Myths Busted. We got busted them, cracked them open. Music, I love it. Anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, man. I always enjoy these conversations. Eclectic, but again, I get a lot out of them. By the way, if anybody needs help on the podcast setup, Sean's your guy. I want to acknowledge you've been helping me. I haven't done it yet, so don't judge it yet, but he's helping me get a prettier setup here. So maybe next time we have this conversation, Sean, I'll look as good as you.
Well, it's very flattering. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And he is right. I'm honored to help anybody with their podcast or YouTube video setup. I love doing this stuff. It doesn't have to be with fitness. It can be for whatever your business is. Anything you're out there serving your customers and clients, we can make it look better. It's easy. It's fun. And thanks for the shout out, Pat. I appreciate that.
For sure.
So I'm going to have links to Pat's books. He has some for dummies books too. I mean, he's very well published. One of my favorites is How to Be Better at Almost Everything. It's fantastic. His new one is How to Think About God. It's $1. I'll buy it for you if you need it.
If anybody wants it for free, just email me. You make it $1 just so it like ranks on Amazon, Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll try out my next cheesy ebook I create. $1. Good stuff. Well, Pat, thank you for your time. All the best to you and your family. And happy anniversary. Hope you had a good anniversary as well.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Sean. Really appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And to you listeners out there and viewers, hope you found some value in this. There's a lot of good takeaways. I'll try and put as much as possible in the show notes so you can make your life even better. And until next time, take care.